Morning, gentlemen. This is the Power Bay. As you can see, we're looking at the rear of the Power Bay, and in the center, relatively in the center of the screen, is the output connector for the Power Bay that handles both high current as well as signal voltages. Chris, the first thing we have to do, is to make sure there is no voltage whatsoever on the card edge in the back of the power bay. So just taking a simple voltage probe, Chris is checking, can you describe the pins? Is it
Yeah, so those two are negative, those two are charged, and those two are discharged. And we will probe the voltage between negative and there is nothing, and between negative and discharge you should see 0. Let's go again. Negative and charge 0, and negative and discharge is 0.
Just do that once more for the audience.
So this is a negative, and those two are charged, and it should say 0 or close to the 0, and then negative and discharge, those two should show 0 or close to the 0, like in this instance is 0.1.
All right, so once we get through that section, once you get to that safety check, then you want to take off the screws that retain the back cover. I know you guys have done this before, but we'll just go through it again for future reference. These are all Allen socket screws.
Excuse me?
There's 6 screws on the top, and then 2 screws on each side. And then on the other side, there's just an additional 6 screws, and then you should be all set to remove the cover. The best way to remove the rear cover is to insert a screwdriver along the top edge or the back edge. Just remember to be careful because there are exposed leads inside, and there is a possibility, remote, but there is a possibility that they're energized.
If you can stop for
Stop.
When I'm gonna measure it, I'm gonna get 52 volts because this battery pack is, so I'm measuring this on those two terminals that I showed you guys before, and I'm gonna get 52.46. That's the indication that the battery is charged and there is a voltage. On the battery pack that you have, you'll see a different voltage, a much more lower voltage. I was, 20s, 30s, I think. So right now, we know that the voltage has to be to charge the battery, the voltage has to be higher than whatever we just measured.
I've zoomed out a little bit on the circuit board, as you can see, and Chris is going to point out that the two places that you have to eventually apply alligator clips so that you can recharge the pack. Chris, could you tell us what you're pointing to?
So this is the negative for charging, and this is the red one is the positive.
So they're both screws holding down a ring terminal. One of them is on a black wire and one of them is on a red wire. Right, and the black wire is
The black wire is the negative return, and the positive is the red one.
okay. So in order to do that, Chris is going to just go through the basic connection of how we would connect the power supply, and we'd like you to do this as we're showing you. Okay? So you see the bench power supply in the back that we normally use.
This is a typical power supply. It's something that you guys have. It's just a single output. The one that you have is double or triple output. Well, what you need is the power supply. You need a couple alligator clips or any connection that you have.
You were out of frame.
You need a diode just to protect the power supply from a feedback voltage from PowerBay. So the diode could be, it should be rated for at least 100 or 200 volts, and it also should be rated for about 5 amps or more. So it's a standard diode you should be able to find, and maybe David has one in the lab.
Down a little bit, Chris.
You also need a circuit breaker. This is actually a DC circuit breaker, but you can use a AC circuit breaker, the one that you have, 10 amps. It would be better to have something lower, like 5 amps, for best results. So the basic configuration is to connect the positive charging to the circuit breaker, then connect it to the power supply. The power supply is off. Then what I would do, I would just take another one of those and connected it to
You're connecting the diode to the alligator clip, right?
yes, I'm connecting a diode to alligator clip, and the other end I'm connecting to the circuit breaker. And then I will take another one and just connect to the other end of the diode, and the diode is pointing, the strip is pointing this way to the battery, so the power supply can charge the battery, but the battery can backfeed.
All right, so let's just say that again. So what we want is we want the charger to go through the diode in this direction to charge the battery, but we want to protect the battery charger by not allowing current to flow backwards. So just make sure the diode has the right direction.
And this will go right here
Let me zoom in a little bit.
on this terminal, on the positive.
You're connecting that one. So the circuit breaker, the diode are all red wires, and you're connecting that to the positive red wire in the power bay.
Yes, that's correct. And the only thing that's left is the negative, that it should go from a negative of power supply right here to the negative of the power bay. And that should complete the circuit. And remember, the circuit breaker is off and the power supply is off.
This is exactly the procedure you should use next. The very next thing is to make sure all the knobs are back to zero, both the voltage side and the current side. Then shut the power supply off completely. Now connect the leads. So Chris is connecting the positive side first on the positive side of the power supply. This is the one on which we've connected the circuit breaker, as you can see. Then he's connecting the circuit breaker to the diode, and he's connecting that to the inside of the power bay. Now, we're not going to actually connect it to the inside of the power bay because, as we said, this one's already charged. So, Chris, just clip it on a wire or something there so we can demonstrate the rest. Something not metal. All right, so then the last bit is just to connect the negative side to the negative side of the power bay.
Right over here.
Okay? Now, once that's done, you flip the circuit breaker to on. So the circuit breaker has been off this whole time. Now it's on. Now you start the power supply. Now you start to increase the voltage until you get about...
So again, you will get because everything is in the off position, you will get the red light indicating that...
Will they get a red light on their power supply?
Mm-hmm. They should get some indication on the display or somewhere that means that we have to adjust a little bit of current because there's just not enough to actually bring the voltage up. And so now I will just adjust the voltage up more and more until you're going to see some change in the current readings. So, normally I will go, let's say the battery voltage was 20 volts. I will increase it to 22. The amps are going to show something. It's going to show some value. Probably 1 amp or 0.1. It depends on the adjustment on the current.
Right, and we want to keep the amperage reading below, let's say, 1 or 2 amps.
That's correct.
So don't let it go 1 or 2 amps. If you turn the current knob up and you don't get an increase in current, then you're going to have to turn the voltage up a little bit. And so use the voltage and the current together to try to raise the current to about 2 amps. And once it's at 2 amps, we're going to let it sit for a while.
Mm-hmm. So the voltage will go up, and if it's not going to up, we can increase it again, and it will go up, and we should go up to, we said 51, 52 volts.
Right. So our target is we know we're done when we get to 51 or 52 volts.
Yeah. At that point, the battery should be charged to 10 or 20% state of charge, and then we can complete the. So the next thing, if we see the 52 volt.
And by the way, the guy that's sleeping in the back, he's our latest employee. His name is Kyle. Kyle waves to the Spanish. He really wasn't sleeping. He was texting.
So the next thing, we're going to see 52. We're happy with the battery charge. We can flip the circuit breaker to off position. We can turn off all the knobs to the off position, and we can switch off the power supply. And the next step is just disconnecting those two alligator clips that go to the power supply.
And then just put everything back the way you found it. Okay? Don't get hurt. Thank you, gentlemen, very much. The credits are next.